Check it out. If you want these slides, they're right there. They'll be at the very end too. And I'll also put them on the internet. I guess they're already on the internet if they're on TinyURL. Just a quick shout out to TinyURL. They're awesome. They put URLs up forever and don't ask you for any money. I should probably pay them at some point. Anyway, you want to hear me talk about TinyURL. You want to hear me talk, oh, what the heck? Yeah, you're here to hear me give a story, tell you a story about Leslie. Leslie is a friend of mine. She's a real person. She said I couldn't use a picture of her and not say where she actually works, but I could use her name. So this is her story. She works in an insurance company. I won't tell you what kind. She's in Chicago. She's an accountant there. She's a really good accountant. She is really smart, and she logs into a bunch of systems a day like we all do. And she believes in MFA. She's got MFA on her phone. She is security-minded in general. She really is smart. And she does believe security is important. She thinks that they should do things the right way. One day she got something to look like this, and this is the Wikimedia. Almost all the images from this are from Wikimedia. All the images are cited in the speaker notes when you get the slides. She got an email that looked like this, and of course this is a classic phishing email. And she's like, I think that looks suspicious, because I know I've seen something like this before. But she can't remember what to do about it. So she asks her boss and says, hey boss, what do I do with the phishing email? And her boss is really busy, and I'm assuming it's his accounting, they were counting something, said, I don't remember. I don't know, just go figure it out. So she goes and looks in Slack, and she goes and looks in her onboarding material, she goes and looks at anywhere she can think of. She gets buried in Notion, like we all do, and it's terribly organized and can't find anything. And this is on camera, so I'll stop talking about Notion. She's looking in places where she normally doesn't ever look, and after a while, she's like, man, I spent way too much time on this. I don't know what to do. So I'm just gonna forward it to security at. And she forwards a phishing email to all of security. And they come to her desk and yell at her. And made her feel really bad and said, hey, you went through a training about this 6 months ago, a 5-minute video you watched, and you clicked a box that said you knew what you were doing. Obviously, you don't know what you're doing. And over a beer, she tells me how bad this made her feel. And I said, that's horrible. And that's when I said, we should do something about this. I said, Leslie, what if when you ask your boss, she's like, oh yeah, there's that Slack channel. Go check that out. And she searches for Slack and she sees security party. What the heck's that? I don't know any of these terms. What's a guac? Salsa and guac? Oh, that's a weird way to spell that. Okay. Well, it's a Slack channel. Let me look at the information here. Smishing. What the heck's smishing? Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, just ask your questions and we'll learn together and have some fun. Okay. So she posts a screenshot of her phishing email, and immediately she gets fireworks and a giant thank you from the robot. Says, hey, thank you for doing the right thing. We are going to review this and let you know as soon as you can. But since this is a phishing email, we can detect that. Go ahead and hit that little box, the one that looks like a stop sign. That's the right thing to do. And then security writes later and says, hey, congratulations, we didn't see this one before. You're the first person to report this one. You get a $25 gift card drawing. You're in the drawing this month. So now Leslie is in a situation where she would have been like, I don't know what the smishing thing is. I kind of want to know what that is. Hey, I can ask any question here about security and nobody's going to get mad at me. I got celebrated for doing the right thing, even though I didn't know what the right thing was. And the whole rest of the team's like, hey, you're that person that security came to their desk and said, hey, great job. Everybody, let's give her a round of applause because she did the right thing. And they elevate her to the status of security champion. I'm Dwayne. I come down here from Chicago. I co-host a security podcast called the Security Repo Podcast. Rihanna, one of our former speakers earlier today, was on it. I'm trying to get Matt on it for future episodes. We've had Jason Haddix, Jason Street, other people not named Jason, people that I'll name in this talk. We talk about everything from pen testing to building C2 to literally anything you can think of, as long as people are passionate about security. Find me on the internet. Mostly I'm on Mastodon and LinkedIn these days. And I love rock and roll. On this stage, Seven Dust will be playing soon. I love Seven Dust. I just saw them. I have a long backstory about not being able to see them for 25 years, and then I just saw them last year, and it was so amazing. And I get to be on the same stage as them. Not at the same time, but that'd be cool too. I work for this company, Get Guardian. Love to talk to you about secrets detection. That is how attackers are getting in. Last year we crossed the Rubicon, and it's the number one way they're getting in is stolen credentials. It's no longer exploits. They're not doing 0 days, people. They're just walking in with credentials. Honey tokens, early warning signs, shrink that dwell time to nothing. Let's do some source composition analysis, IC configuration, and public monitoring. I'll talk to you about all that stuff all night long. Back to our point. I've been doing security now for a couple years. I'm an old DevOps guy, I'm an old Drupal guy, and the thing I've heard repeatedly from stage from people way smarter than me and people that have been doing this for 20 plus years is security has become the department of no. And everybody I talk to about this, CISOs, anybody, is like, yeah. One of the most terrifying talks that's ever been put on the internet was from Black Hat Europe last year called Guest is All You Need. And it's how business teams have been told no by IT so much, they went out and built their own business systems, tying together things like Zapier and these power platforms. And now it's like 60+% of business applications they run have no IT oversight, therefore no security oversight, because we kept telling them no, so they got to get their work done, so they just work around us. What I'm proposing, and why I'm giving this talk, I want to encourage you all to think maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a better way to scale this. And instead of having to go out and buy a 1-to-1 ratio of new developer to new security personnel, oh yeah, that's actually the talk I was talking about. So instead of doing that, we can not do this, all you need is guest. And we can do this, where we empower people within the team to be those security experts. The keynote this morning, actually started talking about this briefly, not a keynote, but the talk that was in here first this morning on we can't be in the room. You can't scale to be in that room when they're first making the design decisions. You can't be in there when the whiteboard is being made and they're having this conversation. We can't just keep shifting left and saying, hey, here's a new tool for you. Congratulations, you're a security expert now. Here's another thing that's going to get in your way. Oh, we're going to meet you where you are, but here's a bunch of crap that you have to deal with now that you never did before, and you're never going to have time to deal with it at the rate it comes at you. But what we can do is empower people and say, hey, who wants to come to a little more training? Who wants to be the empowered champion on your team to be the person that says, can we use that data? Hey, I've never used that system before. Does anybody ever check about, does this even work with Okta or single sign-on? And if you can have those conversations just early enough, you can divert millions of dollars of bad things from happening. The earlier you catch it, the cheaper it gets. I use the whiteboard as the extreme left. I think sometimes we think shift left and we think developer machine and that's as far as we want to go. No, we can shift all the way left to when this is a silly diagram, but again, public domain, or Creative Commons. Whiteboard ink is the cheapest investment you can make as a company. You can buy a pallet load of it for $100, and it's so easy to redraw lines in boxes and take fields out when it's on a whiteboard. It takes you 2 minutes versus it's in production and we have no way to unwind that. Because you want somebody that says, wait a minute, you simply don't do that. And I'll get the documentation on how we do it properly. And if you do it before the design document even gets made, when it's still an idea that you're talking out, it's so much cheaper. So how do you do this? It's not just an idea. It's not out of my head. Goodness no. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants up here, and these are the three that I'm going to cite for this. And we're going to walk through a little bit of the top two, but mostly I'm going to focus on OWASP because I'm an OWASP member, and OWASP is everything to me. So what is the Champions Program? I'm going to quote Dustin Lear here. Dustin made the 5-tran Security Champions Program, and then he open sourced it and called it the Security Champion Program Success Guide. You can just go find that on the internet, just type that in your browser. Or again, get these slides and all the links are there. But that's a long definition, but the program spreads awareness to reduce overall security risk. I'll get to risk, that's a very important topic we'll get to later. Very important, these are non-security volunteers who represent security on their teams. So I'm not talking just in DevOps. I'm talking accounting, I'm talking sales, I'm talking marketing, because it's not a developer who's clicking that malicious link who takes down a whole system. Someone said recently from stage at ShowMeCon, like, if there's one person who can click one link and take down an entire system, is that really a secure system? We gotta learn them to stop blaming these people and start empowering them to do the right thing and make it easy to do the right thing. And very importantly, the system only works if a train goes by. Kidding. This system only works if it's a two-way conversation. If it's just you saying, do this, we're just doing more of the same. It's listening, adapting, and reacting to what's actually in the field. The fact that, hey, everyone's working around this because this is way too hard, and it's slowing us down, and that's not what you're paying us for. Okay, we can deal with that, versus why is no one complying? Very different situation. The Department of No yelling at them versus I'm your partner working with you. Tanya Janka, from the We Hack Purple community, She Hack Purple is her name. She's on her podcast, she explains the backstory, that's a crazy story. But anyway, she says it's this, and she has a whole series of blog posts about it. And recruit, engage, teach these people, recognize them, reward them, over-communicate with them, figure out metrics. And the metrics is the one I'm gonna skim today because I could give an entire hour just on metrics and how to think about metrics. We're gonna kind of skim that very lightly, talk about it, and then we'll stop. And then she says, don't stop. It's important that once you start this machine, it keeps rolling, otherwise, don't even start. My favorite Charles Bukowski poem is Roll the Dice, and it says, if you're gonna go all the way, otherwise, don't even start. OWASP, back to my OWASP. They wrote a whole guide for you, step by step, how you do this. But the thing I took from them that I think is very valuable and applicable across the board, no matter who you are, no matter what organization, no matter what you're trying to build. I'm building an external program right now at GitGuardian, but I'm still basing it on these kind of ideas. You need to be passionate. I'm gonna walk through all these. Start with a vision, secure management support, nominate a dedicated champion, trust your champions, create a community, promote knowledge sharing, reward responsibility, invest in your champions, and anticipate personnel changes. That's directly copy-pasted. I didn't write that. So some things to keep in mind before we go any further. This isn't a magic trick. This isn't a magic wand. This isn't gonna solve all your problems. Are you still gonna need an incident response team? Absolutely. Are you still gonna need a governance team? Absolutely. Are you still gonna need a CISO? Probably. One size does not fit all. What works for your team right now might not work for the next team you work with. What works for marketing might not work for sales. What works for company A ain't gonna work for company B. Maybe it will, but probably not. It's all about adaptability and listening and learning. She doesn't call it this, but I am gonna call it this, and now I'm saying this on camera and be on the YouTube forever, but Tanya Janka's Law. We will never have the staff, budget, or time to do all the security work we want to do. It's not just a cat and mouse game we're never going to win. It's not just a journey that never stops. It's one that we're constantly going to be behind on. Kind of just need to mentally accept that. I'm like, yeah, okay. And am I up for that challenge? If not, go work at a grocery store. That's what my boss told me one time a long time ago, and it sticks with me. And that's the very first piece, is be passionate. If you're not passionate about this, no one else is gonna be. And if they're more passionate than you about it, let them lead this. But you need to have a passion of like, we gotta be better at security. If your passion is checking boxes and going home and saying compliance is security, this is not for you. If you get excited about maybe you can give YubiKeys to a new department, this is definitely up your alley. There are two kinds of people in the room right now. There are people that really, really, really wish they could have been the one that take this apart. Raise your hand if you're that person. And there's somebody in the room, probably, I'm guessing, that wants to put this back together, like right now. Anybody? Yeah. You can't teach that. That is in you, that's who you are. And somebody's probably completely horrified you took a camera apart, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's that inner drive, that thing that is just in your skin. You gotta lean into that. That's your passion. Start with a clear vision. This is not as hard as it sounds, but it's super vital that you start with the end in mind. You don't start running a marathon thinking, I am going to run 26 miles. You think, I am going to cross that finish line, no matter what it takes. I have friends who are long distance runners. I'm clearly not one. But I ask them, like, how do you train for this? Like, how do you get out? It's like, I can see myself crossing that line. And that's what I consistently hear from all my long distance running friends. It's like they see themselves in the process of doing it. They see themselves finishing. They don't start out and say, I'm going to throw up for the next 6 months so as I run continually longer periods of time and starve myself and eat way too many carbohydrates at times. No, they see this. The most important lesson I ever learned, I didn't really mention it in my intro, but I am an old improv producer from San Francisco. I have produced well over 300 improv shows in my life. I've been in mill over 150. This is the single greatest piece of advice I ever got in that entire time I was doing improv. It was make the poster first. Because what does the poster tell you? What's happening, when it is, where it is. Again, this is public domain, or Creative Commons. I love this poster so much. I would love to get an original. Because these are, if you can't see the joke, they're all cover bands. Doing covers of these bands. But it tells you all the information you want to know and why someone would care. I'm not telling you to literally go make a poster for your security champion program, but you might want to write something down with some goals in it. I like writing blog posts. It's kind of my nature. That's part of what I do for a living, is I write content. So for me, when I put together GitCon, back in old life when I was at GitKraken, I literally wrote a successful blog post. It was like, this is what a successful event looks like. And that's how I got people on board with it. When I made posters for shows back in San Francisco, I was like, yes, this is what the show will be, and I got other improvisers to jump on board with me. So pick some goals. Do they have to be realistic? No. Shoot for the stars. Even if you miss, you'll be up by the moon or something like that. But just pick some goals you think you can get through to your organization. Yeah, we can get 75% of people on MFA? Yeah, probably, maybe. Okay, let's go with that. Let's make that our mission. Once you have that mapped out, this isn't exactly in order for the rest of these. They're all kind of simultaneous, but you're gonna have to get top-down support. These fine old gentlemen are the people that ran the not Eastern Germany, but the Leipzig Railway Company in 1889, I believe. This is a fun little picture. But you're gonna have to get their advice, and they are not you. This is a whole other talk. One of my favorite talks I've ever seen in my entire life was by Walt Powell, field CISO at CDW. It was given at 10 at night at CypherCon 6 in Milwaukee. And there were 4 people in the room, and it was the best talk I ever saw. And I hope for the few people in this room, you're feeling the same. But he said in very simple terms in his talk called Why Your Board of Director Deck Sucks, you're not talking to them correctly. They don't understand risk. Risks aren't threats. Risks are not vulnerabilities. Risks are not exploits. If you talk to your board about any of these things, they have no idea what you're talking about. They understand risk in the concept of what you are set to lose if things go badly or if things go wrong. You need to lay out the cost benefit for them in their language. How are they going to look good out of this? Hey, how would you like to not have a giant incident? Probably if we could spend $2,000 on gift cards and a training program. That might actually work. Well, that's an easy win. Lay it out for them in terms that we will get this many more people on MFA. No, we're going to cut down phishing attacks by a lot, and people are going to be safer all around. It's got to be a win-win for them. You're going to need somebody else to help you. This is where you're going to need captains. I used to run the WordPress community's marketing team, make.wordpress.org/marketing. It's now being turned into, I think, communications is they're renaming the department. But I used to run that with a woman named Bridget Willard. Shout out to Bridget. And we were mirror images the same way that Groucho and Lucy are. She was the cheerleader. She could get anybody motivated just by talking to them for a couple of minutes. She just could tap into that natural, whatever they were passionate about, and draw it out. And hey, you want to write a glossary? Let's write a glossary together. That sounds really fun. And I was the tactician. I put together the Trello boards. I made the training videos. I ran bi-weekly meetings from people from, at one point, 19 different time zones. It was crazy. But it only worked because we were a partnership. She filled in all the gaps that I was not great at. I am somewhat a people person. She's a real people person. She's not the technical person. I'm the technical person. And we made it work as a partnership. Find someone that thing that you're lacking and you're just honest with yourself, I need to get better at that. Find someone who's already good at that. Fastest way you're gonna get there. You're gonna need some trust. This goes into that both ways. Actively listen to what people are saying to you. Again, this is a departure from the department of no. This is not, I'm listening for the thing I can say you're wrong, and a lot of us do that, especially when it's security related. We need to say, like, what are you actually telling me? Why is this hard? Why do you think that your entire team is not doing the thing that we clearly documented as the thing to do? And have some empathy with them. And if your knee-jerk reaction to everything is just no, start working some yes and into there. And yes and is not just saying yes and agreeing with them. That is definitely not what it is. It's buying into their reality and building on it. Again, it comes from improv. You can start with nothing and get to agreement on a reality pretty quick in a few lines from nothing. So if someone comes and says, I have this great idea, and it's the stupidest thing you've ever heard in your life. The example I used to use in my WordPress days, where your client comes to you and he wants a green tinted picture of his dog on the top of every website, every web page. If you just say no, he's gonna fight you as hard as he can, because he's the client, and that's his dog, and his customers need to see a green tint version of that dog. But if you say yes, and we're gonna need to track and do some A/B testing on that, just to make sure that we don't hurt your SEO that we spent years building, and to do that, we're gonna need about another $10,000. And watch them back away and say, well, let me think about that. Because you agreed with them, you're agreed to reality. We're gonna do this thing, we just need this one little piece from you. And if you can do that with everybody, yes, MFA is hard, I don't wanna do MFA. Okay, we don't have to do MFA. We could get you a YubiKey. We could get you a piece of hardware to do this. Hey, your machine's got biometric on it. Like, you got an M2. I got an M2. You could just fingerprint in. Let's figure that out with you. We'll solve the problem. And if they're like, okay, maybe I can't use my phone. Create a community. This will not work if it's just you and them. Again, that's back to the old paradigm. That's the old dynamic of you are the person with the power to say no, and they're the person who's kind of working around you. It needs to be a fun community of like, hey, I have an idea, I have an idea, I have an idea. And let's figure out what works together. What community looks like takes a lot of forms. The pandemic forced this idea that I've been living in for 20 some years. I'm an old IRC kid, Bowling Green State University, IRC, shout out. That was my first social network. And then Discord came along not too long ago, and Slack and all the other online communities I've been a part of. And they all pale in comparison to getting together in person, which is why I love B-Sides. That's why I love conferences, is there's nothing like seeing a person face to face and being there with them. Demetri Martin, the comedian, once famously said, there's no shorter feedback loop in the world than between a person on stage and their audience. Because they'll tell you immediately with their face, with their facial expressions, their body posture, if they care about what you said or not. Same is true in person. You can get people in a room and start talking and their eyes glaze over, maybe you need to tweak something. If they leave the room excited and say, wow, that was amazing, I've never thought about it that way, you probably did it right. How do you get them in the room? My favorite idea, I've been discussing this a lot in the last 4 or 5 months of my life with people. I want to be as inclusive as possible, and I have this crazy idea for a candy party. Like, hey, let's get together for people that do work in the same office. Let's get together on Thursday and have this candy party, and you bring your favorite candy, we'll share. Oh, and by the way, we're going to take 5 minutes out of that thing and just tell you about this latest update. And tell you, hey, remember everybody, if you've got a phishing email, it goes over here. Get them together. Have them talk to each other. Share stories. Make sure it's a two-way street. And encourage them to show and tell. How many people work at a place where they encourage, or you're encouraged, to be like, hey, what's something about security you learned this week? I work at a company that's focused on security, and we barely do that. We have a shared content channel where we go out and find articles, which is an important thing to do. It's like, hey, I didn't know this. Hey, look at this thing. But encourage them to make it personal. Like Jason E. Street once said, and actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll get to there later. We need to celebrate them more. Celebrate all of their accomplishments. No matter how small, no matter how minor, they updated their home password on their Wi-Fi. Yes, we should celebrate that. That's a very simple thing to celebrate. They've changed their passphrase on their bank account to be at least 24 characters. Yes, we need to make them feel like they're special and awesome because of that. Because this is what Jason E. Street said. You can't pay someone enough to really care about your data. That link will take you to the podcast where he says this. It's my podcast, shameless plug. But you can't convince them to care about their work. You can convince people to work to improve security for their bank accounts and their kids. Like, hey everybody, how have you made your kids safer online this week? Let's share stories. Why aren't we doing this more? Because they will bring those practices in with them. If they care about MFA at home, they're going to care at work. If it's just a natural thing for them to set passwords that are memorable, long, and very secure, that's exactly what they're going to do when they're back in the office and you're paying them. If it's a strict draconian policy where you're adversarially telling them, do this or you'll be consequences, that ain't a fun way to work. Promote knowledge sharing. This goes back to the other thing I was kind of leaning into. Let's face it, I don't know a lot of people who love reading 90-page PDFs day after day after day. And guess what our industry loves producing? 90-page PDFs that we have to stay up on day after day after day. Who's read all of the DBIR from Verizon this year? I haven't. You did? Who read the Sophos report that came out, their last H1 report? Some great stuff in there. I skimmed it. It's one of those things with ChatGPT. At this point, I'm just copy-pasting into ChatGPT. Just tell me what's important. I trust you enough that, and this is public data, let's just go with that. But my point is, it's impossible for us who have security in our title somewhere. I am a senior security developer advocate is my actual title these days, to care about this stuff and to actually go and read it. Someone that's not us, someone outside that's, their entire mission is let's make the legal department better, probably is going to be on top of the latest malware. But there's a lot of resources out there where we can. And if we go try to read all of these by ourselves and listen to all these podcasts, these awesome podcasts, all day by ourselves, we won't get our jobs done. And neither will anyone else. But if we can train our community to be like, hey, here's what we actually care about for protecting you. If you see anything out there, and here's some great resources, let's go check these websites. If you see anything in the mainstream news, let us know that too. And let's start having conversations. So if someone posts something like, hey, here's a 0 day I read about, someone can ask a question is like, what on earth is a 0 day? Or they'll read the article and be like, is this something going to apply to us? And you really want someone to ask, is this even reachable? Is this exploitable in our stack? Maybe they'll say that. I don't know. That's what we say internally. Reward responsibility. I like hats. I don't wear hats, but I like them. So applause to Matt, who threw out hats earlier, because hats are awesome. Buy some hats. Give them to your team. They did the right thing. Here's a hat. You get to be the security champion of your booth today. You get to be the security hat wearer. I forgot there was a company called Champion when I made this slide, and I thought it was funny to include their logo. Not any way affiliated with the company Champion. Badges on LinkedIn. Why not? They're free. There's a bunch of guides on how to make them. They're real easy. Anybody can print out certificates of achievement from the internet. It turns out there's a website that you can just make them and print them. Why not? Amazon gift cards cost money, but not much. $25 goes a long way toward coffee. Oh yeah, and make sure that once you got the buy-in from upstairs, from the upper management, it's like, hey, just so you know, this person did outstanding, and here's the write-up that we're going to give them to include in their annual review. So their self-performance, like, yeah, I was a champion this year for security. I helped maybe save the company from a breach. Will that get them a raise? I have no idea. I don't know how your company works. Can't hurt. I wouldn't want that on my annual review. Make it part of the culture, which is different than investing in them. Subtle change, subtle difference. But there's one rewarding because you did the right thing or you're on the right path, hooray. And then there's the people that come up to you after the candy party and say, I want to learn more. Or how do I get on this path? That I didn't even know incident response was a thing, but that sounds way better than the help desk job I'm doing, or whatever they're doing. Hey, I would really like to be a security analyst now that I understand that's even a thing. Was at RSA recently, and what is it, INS? No, not INS. What's the company? It's the 3-letter acronym. They do all the CISO research. Anybody? ARN? Anyway, they showed the math as like hiring someone that is an IAM expert for security that will report straight to a CISO is going to cost you like $300,000 a year on average. Promoting someone who's really, really good at managing security on their little team to handle IAM across multiple teams is a lateral slide that will cost you about 5% more than you're currently paying them, whatever that is. Much different balancing act when you're doing this stuff. But it does take investment, it does take time. So send them to places. When I first ever gave this talk, I gave it at Atlantic Security Conference up in Halifax. That's why I got their logo on there. But send them, maybe not DEF CON, not right away, especially not this year when it's still all weird. But send them to places like B-Sides. Let them have experience talking to other people in the field. How many people here are not security people? I would love to come to a B-Sides where half the hands go up and be like, I am just learning this. That, not half the hands, but a good chunk of the room at 312 in Chicago, my hometown. And you go to some conferences and it's like literally half the room is like, I'm a developer or I am in this other area and I'm very curious. My company sent me here. We should be doing more of that. How I can tie this in and justify it as a talk related to my company is you realize like all your vendors would love to spend an hour with you at some point and just talk to your teams and say, here's the problem set, here's awareness. We're not here to sell you, you're already a customer. We just want to tell everybody like, hey, this thing called secret sprawl is killing us all and we have to solve it, we just really do. There's a lot of ways to do it. Your company's already doing the right thing. I'm not here to sell you anything, but here's all the stats. Here's how you personally can go about doing this and it won't cost you any money, just here's what you can do as a person. Sneak will do this for you, CyberArk will do this for you. Any vendor you have will do this for you. They will come in and say, here is exactly how you stay safe. Probably using our tools, but in general. CEUs, I know is a bit of a conversation people like and don't like to have. We'll drop that one. But if there's certs you can send them to, if they really, really want to get their CISP or whatever, CSP, let them do it. Send it to them. Invest in them. And know that your company's going to change over time. Average life of a CISO, or not CISO, a CIO is 3.8 years at this point, maybe a little less. That's a lot of changeover. There's a lot of change in the industry. So one of the things that might scare people, and what scared me when I first tried to volunteer for the WordPress marketing team, was how long do I have to do this for? And nobody had an answer because we were the first generation. We literally took it over from the person who worked at Automatic, who started the team, and it was undefined. And I remember having the conversation with one of the other team leads from somewhere else in marketing, or not marketing, but the WordPress community. And she's like, you don't have to do it forever. Just however long you want to do it. It'll still keep going. We'll be fine. You can lead with a small L and just still show up and teach people how to do things until you're comfortable stepping away. But yeah, there's no eternal champions here. Does anybody remember this game? It's my favorite Sega Genesis game. Nobody. It's like, this is a legendary game. Nobody remembers it. Had like 16 different endings. And you can tell people that, like, hey, you don't have to do this forever. You want to step up and be a security champion? 3 months. That just can give me 3 months. Cool, 6 months. And if they keep wanting to do it forever and ever, maybe just hire them in security because that's the person you want to hire. Your captains, they shouldn't have to do it forever either. Let them know that we're going to rotate. Figure out a way to diplomatically do that, to democratically do that, elect new ones. And listen to the feedback as you go, because the only way you're going to know if this works is if you're listening to the feedback and people tell you that, hey, I really like this aspect, or we really have made a lot of people mad with this. We should do this differently. Again, no magic to this. It's a lot of just find your way. Bonus advice. Those were the top 10 from OWASP, an organization that really loves the number 10. This is my only AI-related slide in the whole deck. I personally love ChatGPT. I have come a long way from when I originally said that's a fad, it's going to go away, it's going to run its course, and people are going to be, it's going to Bitcoin 2.0. And then someone at a conference said, ChatGPT is not going to take your job. Someone that understands how to use ChatGPT is going to take your job. And then I started learning ChatGPT and prompt modeling and whatnot. So you need an opinion, like, is this a good idea? How would I explain this to someone that's not technical? How would I, what's a good idea for a topic to get people together for, a lunch and learn? Start asking it just random stuff, and it's at least a jumping off point, so you're not by yourself. You should really be doing this with other people, but not everybody's got infinite time to listen to all of your ideas. This is the other place AI shows up in this talk. You can tell because it can't spell design. But unless you're designers, how many people have designers that you talk to about security stuff? Have you ever, let me rephrase that. How many security people in here have ever talked to any of the designers that work for your company about the security for the tools they use? Good, good. It's very few hands. Oh, there's one in the back. Great, awesome. They're using Figma, Canva. These are extremely powerful tools with a lot of ability for abuse and theft. So we should be talking to them about things. But unless they're help to design things. I am a terrible, terrible visual designer. These slides are mine, but again, I stole all of the images, not stole, I freely used all of the images under Creative Commons license from the internet and appropriately cited where I didn't. And then this ChatGPT made me this with AI. They can help you design things that are pretty, that people like to come to a party, that has a good poster. Come to this thing that's like interesting looking. Use the whole team. Automate things wherever you can. And my first opening example of what a chatbot could do, look at an image and say, I think that's a phishing email. There's a billion ways to do this. Picking on Zapier here because I literally pulled this from Zapier's website. But yeah, you can make custom responses. You gotta make it personal for people. I love this picture. Putting together not just this talk, but I go through the Wikimedia and Creative Commons a lot and look for things. This individual made this picture for the community. It's like 17 downloads ever when I touched it. And just, thanks, Philip. Like, he just put it out there for all of us to just use freely under Creative Commons, so thank you. But I think it does speak to it. Like, community runs on people's passions. It runs on the heart, all of it. I have a friend right now who is at an anime convention. I think it's over now because he's in Europe. But he ain't getting paid for that. Nobody's getting paid for that except the artists, hopefully the artists, and the people running the convention. But still, hundreds of people there because it's their passion. I long for a day when security is the same way. Maybe DEF CON is an example of that, I don't know. Lastly, and the most practical advice I can give you out of all of this, I am not a psychologist. Dustin Lear is not a psychologist, but shout out to Dustin for introducing me to this concept. Octalysis framework for gamification and behavioral design. There's a link, it'll take you to the website, or just look up Octalysis framework. Basically, it's 8-dimensional way of understanding what motivates a person. And they go through tons of examples. If you go through the Champions guide that Dustin put together, he uses this a lot of examples. But what motivates person 1 will not motivate person 2 for a wide variety of reasons. Their childhood, their personal experiences, what kind of beer they like, literally really hard to map that out. This makes it a little easier to understand like what that person needs, what they're looking for. $25 Starbucks card might insult them, or it might be the greatest thing they could possibly earn. You're not gonna know until you have that conversation, but this will help you map out how people kind of work. People are unpredictable, but there's only so many paths you can go down. You need to be inclusive, and in every way possible. Yes, people that don't look like you, that people that might come from different places than you do, people that originally spoke different languages than you do, yes, all of that, 100% we need to be inclusive. The more diverse we are, the better we are. There's tons of studies that prove this. But also be inclusive of people that might not be technical. We know what MFA is. We also know what CVEs are. You aren't born knowing that. Be patient. Again, go back to ChatGPT. Like, how would I explain this to a 5-year-old? Maybe make it a little bit higher level than that, but you can get started with that. Part of why I love working where I work is I can explain exactly what my company does to a little kid. We find things that shouldn't be out in public. You need to be welcoming to everybody no matter what their skill level, and meet them where they are and help elevate them from there, not just throw extra work on them. So I would challenge anybody in the room that's like, yeah, this seems like a good idea. I dig what you're laying down here, people. This is how I would start that email to somebody on the team. Somebody that is like, hey, I think this other person might be a good champion, or that might be a good captain for helping me do this. Hey, I want to do this thing. Remember the thing I said earlier, write the poster first? If you have that blog post that you like scribble out, you can insert it there, or at least mock it out so you can insert it later. So you can have this in your drafts, so you can just send it when you're ready. Hey, can we meet about this? Let's have a conversation. This is that simple to get started. This doesn't need to be a massive undertaking that's going to involve the entire company. If you have a security champion with 2 people in it, a security champion program with 2 people in it, that's 2 more people in the company that are learning about security and helping secure your company than you had before. And what did it cost you? Whatever gift cards or incentives or hats you bought them. Much cheaper than another hire. So in conclusion, this is where we need to be. As early in the conversation as humanly possible. How do we get there? Either we hire 1-to-1 for every new developer or accountant or marketing or salesperson you hire. You have to hire a security person. Ain't nobody got budget for that. Or we could elevate all of our people to be like, be on the lookout for these things and constantly train them in a way that's not insulting or demeaning to them. Be like, we're empowering you to be a champion. To be able to say, maybe we shouldn't go through the mines. Maybe we shouldn't go through the mines. Every team, no matter what they are, deserves to have a security champion helping them stay secure. It can't just be a department of no yelling at other teams. Otherwise, they're going to keep going around you. And we're going to have this shadow IT problem that is literally going to eat us in the next 3 to 5 years. Because people will just stop going through your application because they know you're a Microsoft shop. They're going to fish someone to get into their Power platform and see all of the databases that your employees created outside of your MySQL and Postgres accounts and steal people's pre-II that way. Again, go watch that talk. All you need is guests. It will keep you up at night. Make the poster first for what you want to build. I say write a blog post, make a video, whatever you do that helps you organize your thoughts. Include the 5 whys and the how. Because this is where you want to be at 3:30 in the morning. Asleep because no alarms are going off, because you're secure. Because everybody did their part and made the company secure. I'm Dwayne. I live in Chicago. Check out the Security Repo podcast. I'm serious. You'll like it. Maybe you won't, but you'll listen to it anyway. Hit me up about rock and roll, karaoke, anything else music related. I love music. And hit me up online, and please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat with y'all. And that's my talk. There's the slides.
Thank you, Dwayne.